Hi, welcome to Greg's Stoneyard. In this video I'm going to be working with this approximately 5,000 pound piece of Belmonte Rose granite. The goal is to end up with a fountain. Here I'm just playing around with the forklift to find the edge which I like the most before cutting the stone. So what I'm trying to do here is get this, so this point here is at the top. So let me get a jack, put it under here and jack it up. So this is basically sitting like a diamond. Let's take a look at the design I came up with. This is a 3D model I made in Fusion 360. As you can see, I want to make the cuts at an angle to the flat faces of the stone. I'm also adding some lights, so I was able to accurately model up their location. This way, I'm able to drill the holes for the lights at the same time I drill the holes for the water. You can see here I'm running the hole for the water up the side of the fountain, which is a bit different because usually, most time, you have the hole for the water running up the center of the fountain. But I'm trying to do something a bit different here. Now I'm just taking the jack and trying to get the stone into the position I want, get that so it looks like a diamond there. Took a while, but eventually I had to bring the forklift in and to get it exactly where I wanted. Lots of fiddling around and double checking with the level to make sure I got things where I want it. He spent the morning setting this up. Took a bit longer than I thought. The stones aren't really quite uniform, so it was a bit more difficult than I had planned. Anyway, it's a bit precarious there, but hopefully it holds while I'm cutting and drilling. These marks on here are just so I can get a rough idea where everything's going to land. Make sure my supports stay away from where I'm cutting, which I think they are. So that's good. Okay, now I'm going to just square everything up with the wire and then I can start drilling. Okay, well, that was a long day of setting up. Finally ready to drill here. So I'll just start with the hand drill down there to start the hole, and then I'll use the drill rig to finish it. Anyway, that was all day getting this all set up. It's 5:30 now, and I've got to go 80 inches, so it should take about an hour and a half, but we'll see. It could end up taking a lot longer than that.
A few moments later.
Here I'm drilling the holes for the lights. And I just, the reason you see me using the blower there is just to dry off the stone in between the cuts so I can mark with a marker where the drill hits, and then first I drill it with the grinder there with a small bit on it, just so the large bit on the drill rig doesn't walk across the stone. It's just kind of like a pilot hole. So now I'm just putting the wire back on so I can find the 0 point, and this is what everything will be referenced off when I actually go to make the cuts in the stone. So once I find the 0 point here, I can then switch back to the core drill and drill the holes for the cuts. Just about to finish drilling this hole here, and if you watch closely, I forgot to take out the support I had put underneath the drill, and I moved the saw. Luckily, it didn't bend anything, but it was a close call there. I gotta pay more attention when I go to move the saw. I mean, ideally the saw would be rigid enough it wouldn't have to support the drill, but unfortunately it's not. Got this set up here to start cutting. Drilling's done. So I'm just gonna set up the tarps now and then start cutting. just in between cuts here. I'm going to pull this piece out just because the next cut it'll end up with a thin piece like that in between, so I don't want it to crack when I go to remove these. So I'm doing that now. What I've done is I slid these flat bars in here just to give it something to rest on as I pull it out. So I'll get the forklift in here, and then I'll put some ratchet straps through there and attempt to pull it out onto the forks. Take you inside here and we'll take a look at the CNC interface. Right now I'm just trying to show, if you watch where the mouse pointer is, you can actually see it's the path that the saw is following. You can you just watch, you'll see it slowly move out from where that mouse pointer is, and that's the path that the saw is moving on. And if you look in the top left corner, you can see the X and Y coordinates changing as it's moving. And yes, my little workshop there is a mess. I need to clean it up. Just drilling some holes to epoxy in some stainless rods so that this can be supported when it's standing up. I could have core drilled them, but most of what I've read about epoxying in threaded rod is that you want a rougher hole, and they recommend a hammer drill. So that's what I'm doing here. I just got this set up here so I can keep the hammer drill somewhat level while I'm drilling the holes, and somewhat, square. Anyway, that's how I've done this. Just set it up on the forklift there. So now I'll get to drilling. Here we can take a look at the hammer drilled hole. You can see it looks kind of rough inside there. And then next, we'll take a look at this is a core drilled hole. You can see compared to the hammer drilled one, it's a lot smoother. And I guess this is why that for the epoxy, they recommend that you use a hammer drilled hole. Just about to epoxy in the 3/4 inch stainless threaded rods so that this can be attached firmly to a base of some sort. I'm using the Walt AC 100 plus gold 2-part epoxy. The only thing is it has fairly short working time. Right now it's about 64 degrees, so I probably got about 8 minutes or so working time. Got myself a new heavy duty caulking gun, so I'll get some gloves on and try and do this. So on the end of the epoxy applicator, there's a small cylinder that's just slightly smaller than the diameter of the holes that I'm trying to fill with the epoxy. And the reason that's there is so that when you're pumping the epoxy in, it stays at the end of the applicator. Anyway, instead of buying the correct one, I just made myself a homemade one, and it actually got stuck in the last hole. So you'll see me run away here to get something to pry it out. So I just popped it out right there so I could get this last piece of threaded rod in. This epoxy dries really fast, especially if it's warm out, as I mentioned earlier. So you really have to have a plan in place before you start applying it. I started this last video at 6:30 and it's now 6:45, and this has already gone solid here. I did use these screws to shim it a bit while I was setting them, just to hold them in place, but I don't want to move them now. But they're pretty much they're set now. There's no turning back. Anyway, so you don't have very long working time with this stuff, and the hotter it is outside, the less working time you have. So you really got to try to set it when it's around 60 degrees to 65. I wouldn't anything over 70, and you're really risking how much time you have to work with it. So I'm trying to get this stood up right today, hopefully within the next hour before it rains, without breaking it. I think I'm gonna put, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. Maybe straps through here, and then tilt it up. So we'll see. Didn't go exactly according to plan, but in the end it ended up working. And that's just phone cable that the forklift hit there, not high power electrical or anything, so I was okay. So today, after I've got it turned up right here, just got to go through and grind down these areas where the wires start and stop. And once I have those smooth, this is pretty much done. I might make a base for it, but that's what I'm doing today. Got half the roughing done. But what I was using is this small, I think it's 2-inch wheel, but I'm quickly wearing it down. So I may Try to put one of these little wheels on to do a bit more of the roughing on the other side, and then just use that small 2-inch wheel for the final roughing. I switched to just a regular 50 grit pad on a flexible backing pad, 3-inch. And now I'm trying to get rid of those roughing marks. So I've done a bit of 50 grit on here, but if you look closely, right here, you can still see some of the deeper gouges. So I'm just getting rid of those, and I'm just going to go to 50 grit on this. And this, you can really see that I haven't done any of the 50 grit on this side yet. So you can really see the deeper gouges left by the roughing tools that I was using. Anyway, I'm going to continue with the 50 grit on here until all those are smooth. I switched to this 30 grit pad. It's a 4-inch on the 3-inch flexible backing pad. That way I could get in here and see like something, and get it to go up around the corners here. I'm just about done. Might do a little bit more. You can see I still see some roughing marks right there. But otherwise, it's pretty close to being done. Just going to install the Inlite Fusion 22 RVS lights in here today. They install pretty quickly, so this won't take long. Got the Inlights installed. So now I just have to wait for it to get dark and then we can test them out. Now it's time to get the water running through it. See how it functions as a fountain. It's a bit of a challenge getting it to all run evenly, so I could get water running down each of the floor openings. because I left the top with that sort of odd slope to it, it was a bit difficult to get the water to run down the way I wanted it to. So I had to do some a bit of carving on the top to create some channels to get it to go where I wanted it to. I'll show that here in a minute. I had to use this fountain head as well as use the grinder to carve in channels for the water to flow. The big channels you see running the other way, those are the drill marks left at the quarry when the stone was extracted. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Here's a few pictures of it at night to get an idea what the lights look like on it. So thanks for watching. Bye.